morning. On behalf of Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead, the Commission, staff, and Manager Fuentes, I want to welcome you all to the Commission meeting of the City of Truth and Consequences on June 27th. Let the record show that it is 9:01. And before we have roll call, if you have any electronic device on your person, could you please make sure it's in quiet mode? We would appreciate that. Madam Clerk, can we have roll call, please?
Honorable Senator Whitehead is absent. Honorable Kathy Clark is absent. Honorable Ralph Heschler.
Here.
Honorable Paul Buckett.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, we have a quorum.
Mr. Mayor, just for the record, Kathy Clark did contact me, and she said she was having car trouble, and she wasn't sure she was going to make it.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. And also, Madam Clerk, let the record show that Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead did email me yesterday and let us know that she would not be able to attend the meeting today. So it looks like this is a meeting of the County Commission rather than with 3 members rather than the City of Truth and Consequences with 5. Next item is number 2, silent meditation. Please join me for 15 seconds. Thank you. The next item is number 3, Pledge of Allegiance. Clerk Catherine, could you please lead us on?
Mr. Chairman, I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I need a motion for approval of the agenda, please.
Mayor Green, I'd like to motion that we approve the agenda as presented for June 27, 2018.
I have a motion by Commissioner Heschler. I need a second.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Baca. Any discussions, further comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. Next item is comments from the public. We have a 3-minute rule. If you want to address the commission, please come forward to the microphone. And if you have any documentation that you would like as a permanent part of the record of this business meeting, please put it in the black box next to the microphone. The floor is open. Going once, going twice. At least we keep the record intact.
My name is Terry Van. I live in 1040.
Excuse me, Terry, excuse me 1 second. This is a business meeting. We expect you to be quiet. If you have some discussions, please take them outside the door. Thank you very much. Sorry, sir. You're up.
Okay, one of the things I'd like to ask is, does the council have any input on these roundabouts they're talking about up on Dix Street? That's the one thing I'd like to know. It looks to me as though stoplights would be the reasonable and definitely the most economical thing to do. Can you imagine what those semis are going to be like in those roundabouts? RVs, a guy pulling a 22-foot trailer with a boat on it. It's going to be nothing but one big mess. My first experience with a roundabout was in Waco, Texas. I was about 25 years old. I grew up in the central part of Nebraska where it was farms and ranches. The only roundabout I ever heard of was when the guy went out in the morning, tells his wife, "I'll be here around about dinner time." That was it. I've never heard of roundabouts in Cruces, Albuquerque, and Santa Fe, but I'm sure they have them. But they don't seem to solve any of their traffic problems up there or down in Cruces. But that's about all I had to say on that. But as long as we're on the subject of transportation, streets, and stuff like that, how do you arrive at the places that you're going to replace or redo streets and things like that? Is that done by the department? Is it done by the commissioners? Or who actually makes a decision on that? One thing I would like to say is, I live just off Marie Marie Street, 3 houses. I walk that street every morning. And so I decided I would just, for the fun of it, see what that street actually is. And right now, there are over 900 patches on Marie Street. That is one of the major east-west streets in the northwest part of town. And it looks to me like that would take preference over some of these others, where we will have more vehicles on that street in one day than all the rest of the places you're going to refix in a week. I think there ought to be some consideration to fixing some of the streets that are already here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like, hold on?
Thank you for allowing me to speak to you, Commissioners. Hello, Trujillo, 506 West Third Street. I'm talking today because someone, actually a couple of people talked to me about personnel. Personnel, is this on? On personnel. And I wanted to make sure that I addressed the commission once again. I've done so before in the past. I rewrote the personnel policy to my suggestion for them, and I'm still don't understand why we don't have subject matter experts as part of a personnel evaluation when you have people that are coming up for a position. I was very fortunate in working for a federal government organization, and we always made sure that 3 of the 5 members selecting a person were subject matter experts that knew what the position required. We do not do that here in the city, and we do not have the best persons hired, I would argue. I've suffered that myself. We have the ability for only the city manager with a smile on his face and the head of HR who can sit on the panel and select the department director. You can do that. I'm not saying it's done all the time, but it has been done. I know because I was on that. The end, I didn't get selected, but I was interviewed that way. And the head of HR had no idea what, I mean, she's a beautiful person, but she's not a subject matter expert. We need to get subject matter experts on panel, I would argue. We also need to have a management review of what positions the city is going to be hiring. We have, I would argue, a department that is on the books that has not been created as ordained by the ordinances, which is supposed to be, you all are supposed to create the departments, and thereafter one is supposed to fill those with positions. It's not happening. And it already has come to bite us on the butt, if you will. I really think we need a management review of the positions in the city. I don't know why we're not doing that. It just seems really crazy. I used to prepare for these things. I spent a couple of hours to speak, but I'm not doing that anymore. You all don't seem to take things to heart. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the commission? Mr. Rickert?
Good morning. Stanley Rickert, 1705 Cary Street. I'm here to talk about the Planning and Zoning Commission. Where are they? How come you haven't done anything about getting that back in order? It was back in 2013, sometime in the middle of the year, when there was a dispute about a sign being put up down there by the Charles Motel, if I'm not mistaken. And they sent their request to the commission. The commissioner debated it and said, no, we're not going to do that or whatever. And the Zoning and Planning Commission decided, well, if you're not going to listen to our ideas and follow ordinances, they're just going to walk off the job. Well, they walked off the job and left it up to you guys to make the decisions. Most likely Juan Fuentes made the decision to let that sign go up since it was oversized. Anyhow, I want to know how come the Planning and Zoning Commission wasn't reinstated. You don't get somebody to get in here and take care of this business. There's a lot to be discussed, a lot of ordinances that need to be challenged or at least followed, and have an idea of what the city can expect for future, right? I'm still trying to put up with a bunch of junk over there. You should see the new trash that's been brought in. It's amazing. Next door to me, it's looking worse every day. You know, the number of boats or trailers or another half dilapidated, you talk about unfit housing that needs to be demolished. These houseboats should never have been brought in here. They're just, you know, way oversized, way big, way out of shape. They don't work. They're not watercraft. They just sit there and they haven't been worked on since the last time that Susanna Diller was over there with Ray Chavez to inspect things. All right, and that's been over 3 months ago. Nobody's even looked at them other than, you know, to say, oh, look, they're in the way. But pretty much, I'm just trying to figure out what's going on with this commission. How come you don't take things to heart, like Mr. Trujillo said? You know, you don't care. It seems like you just push things aside and go on about your own business selectively, what you think is important. You know, there's a lot of things that are important around here to people like me, right? I may be just a little peon, right? But there's a lot of peons like me in this town, and eventually they're going to get smart. They're going to get rid of you fools. You know, there's just irresponsibilities coming from you folks that you don't take care of, you know, and that's what's sad. So I hope you guys get your act together and you know, try to work things out, get things accomplished. You know, it's time to just adjust what you have taken care of and look forward to the future. I appreciate your time, and thank you for listening. Have a good day.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the commission? Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is response to public comments. Do we have any response to what we heard this morning?
I have a couple of responses.
Commissioner Heschler.
Mr. Torrio, just a response for you is that we just recently conducted interviews for chief of police. 3 of the panel members had extensive police experience, so I was happy in that regard. I'm not saying we're doing it all the way through yet. I think you make some valid points, and we'll keep on trying to do that, but I know that at least 3 of the panelists did have extensive experience with that particular interview. Mr. Rickard, this is not your personal commission. We send our professionals out there to look at the property, and we rely on them to come back to us and give us the information that we need to act. And so far, I feel confident in our professionals that have done their job. And so until we hear differently from them, that's the way I'm going to deal with it and vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Baca, any comments?
Yes, I got one.
Okay, sir.
I live in the area of Rodeo Road and basically where Mr. Ricker lives. I'm not sure which property you're talking about. I'm not sure if you're talking about the one north of you or the one across the street from you that's the junkyard. I don't see you saying anything about that gentleman.
He's cleaning his place up.
Nothing's happened in 3 months. I'm just kind of curious which one. Why do you say one and not the other? That's just my question.
Thank you, sir.
Not adding to the problem.
Excuse me, this should not be a dialogue. It's an opportunity for the commission, for you to actually hear what the commissioners are thinking. I'd like to address a couple of things. Number one, about the P&Z. We had a full functioning P&Z board, and because of the actions, the negative actions of some citizens who forgot that these are volunteers, these are your next door neighbors, would nail these people constantly. And one by one, to no one's surprise, they resigned. Because why should they have to take that garbage when they're volunteering to serve this city and make it better? To your point, Mr. Rickard, there are 5 positions opened at the P&Z. We've been advertising that. It's on the board, I believe, down at City Hall. Not one person has signed up. Not one person. And I don't blame them. Yes. Is this commission and other commissions infallible? Of course not. But we are certainly doing our best to serve this community. And it's a partnership. It's a partnership between the citizens and the government. And I don't necessarily see the citizens understanding that, as you claim that we don't understand your points. Terry, a relationship to the roundabouts, that is a state, let me correct this. This is an interstate business bypass loop that we do not own, we do not control. Originally, they did a traffic light study, and at that particular point, it did not justify the amount of traffic, which seems to be condensed in a very short period of time when school lets out. It didn't warrant a traffic light. However, they did offer us the option, if we could make it a four-way intersection by taking Smith Street and on our dime, by the way, on our dime, take Smith Street, reroute it down through the Moose, right to where their RV parks, that park is located, then they would consider a four-way stop sign, a four-way traffic light. They would have to have another research. They'd have to do the same thing they did for the roundabouts. But it's about a $2 million, maybe plus project on the city's back. And frankly, unless Director of Finance Torres tells us differently, we don't have $2 million to reroute Smith Street. So that's the dilemma that we are in. It's their dance, it's their orchestra, it's their road. Certainly, we had a meeting last Wednesday at the high school, and it gave the citizens an opportunity to express their either like or dislike on this idea. But eventually, as Trent Doolittle, who's the engineer on the program, said, the ball is in his court. He is the one that's going to make the final decision one way or another, and it's all about safety. Also, it's a federal money, it's federal dollars, so there's certain rules and regulations that they have to follow, but it's a work in progress, so we're just going to have to wait and see. They did show pictures, I don't know if you were at that meeting, sir, but they did show pictures of a tractor pulling a 53-foot trailer going around a roundabout, and it seemed not to have a problem. There is an area, and correct me, Manager Fuentes, if I'm wrong, where if they need a wider turn, they actually can go up on some type of a structure that can withstand that weight. But other communities haven't. We have no way, it seems, to slow that traffic, and it's just a question of when, unfortunately, someone's going to get killed. There are a lot of distracted drivers, kids coming out of school on their electronic devices, not paying attention. And as you know, in 3 years, I think we had something like 31, my memory might be wrong on this, but 31 accidents at that corner, and fortunately, none of them have been fatal. But that's where we are right now. So hopefully that begins to answer some of your questions. Okay, moving on. The next item is a presentation. Presentation for the review of the Infrastructure Capital Improvement Plan, otherwise known as ICIP, for the years 2020 through 2024. Our Grant Projects Coordinator, Tracy Burnett, will be the presenter. Tracy, first.
Okay, you'll have to remind me again how to use this. So just
The button on the left,
okay.
push it up.
That one.
Let's see here. No,
Okay, so we should be good?
no.
No?
Turn it on.
That one there, okay. That's the button on the right. Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners. On May 24th, I attended an annual ICIP training in Albuquerque. And during this training, they discussed some changes that are going to be implemented for the 2020 and 2024 ICIP. So as I go through the presentation, I'll talk about some of these changes. This is a presentation only, no actions required at this time. And I'll be bringing this back to the Commission and the public for discussion and action either in late July or early August. So this is just so we can kind of get a head start on the ICIP process. That didn't work.
Just a little arrow. Oh, you know what?
No.
Let me see.
Oh, okay. We're not a clicker person, I guess. So what is the ICIP? So our ICIP, as noted, stands for the Infrastructure Capital Improvement Plan, and it's a plan that establishes priorities for anticipated capital projects. It covers a 5-year fiscal period. In this case, it'll cover from 2020 to 2024, and it's developed and updated and submitted annually to the local government division. So the ICIP is not a wish list. That is a new implementation. In the past, our ICIP has been developed more as a wish list of sorts, and now it's being designed for more shovel-ready projects. And it's broke down by planning stage, design stage, and construction stage. And even though most appropriations have a 4-year expiration date, they're now requesting that our projects extend no more than 16 months from the date that we are allocated the money to the date that the money is completely spent. It's also not a funding application or a guarantee for funding or any other type of funding guarantee source. So why is it important? It's going to establish our priorities. It's a tool to showcase our priority projects. It focuses on our critical need projects. It encourages planning. It increases our funding opportunities. Some funding agencies do require that a project be listed on the ICIP, and if they're not required to be listed, sometimes you get a higher point value if they are listed. Sometimes they're just not even eligible for funding if they're not on that ICIP. The governor's office also uses the ICIP publication when vetting for projects. So an ICI project should create a new fixed asset, enhance an existing fixed asset, or have a life expectancy of at least 10 years, and it should be ready to proceed. Again, they really stress that this is not a wish list. So in identifying a project that we may need to go from the very beginning stages to the very end, we would want maybe to first year request planning funds, maybe the second year where we request our design funds, and a third year then request construction funds. Unless we happen to have a project that we've received some type of grant monies from, or we can fund locally on maybe the planning and the designing, then we can just request construction funds at that time. And again, they are really stressed to complete the projects within 16 months. So the ICIP projects should also have really good estimates, be over $10,000, identify certain funding sources, whether we've applied for them or not. We need to identify where we could apply for extra funds. And more importantly, they really want us to regionalize our projects. Really important to note that these are estimated costs that we put in. The city does not have any type of firm under contract to project and update all of our exact preliminary costs, which is fine. They don't require those. They do just require some estimates. Be nice if we could hire a firm full-time to do those ICIPs like some of the bigger cities, but that's definitely not within our budget. What we do is we speak with different engineers and contractors that we've developed any relationships with. I review similar projects that are listed on the ICIP website with other entities. I also reach out to other entities with similar projects to just kind of get some of those estimated pricing for plan, design, and construction. Then again, we'll also see on each particular project, we'll determine what other funding sources we can apply for funds to assist with funding those projects from start to finish. In the past, we've been lucky enough to receive funds from CDBG, USDA, NMFA Colonias, our Water Trust Board, Aging and Long-Term Services, Local Government Road Fund, as well as NMDOT. And this year we did an application for the first time to BOR, as well as some DOT MAP funding. Those applications weren't successful. Lots of people applied, but it is new funding sources that have been opening up to us. Most of our projects are going to exceed any allocation amounts that we can get, so we do need to attempt to be able to combine funds with our grants, cash match, loans, as well as our local funds in there. So this year, again, we'll break projects into phases for funding purposes. We'll break them down to plan, design, and construction. And regionalization, they stress just as much as a quick turnaround on our projects. So some of our project examples, are construction and expansion of public buildings, storm and sewer systems, water, wastewater upgrades and extensions, acquisition of land for public use, planning and engineering costs for these projects, recreational facilities and parks, and streets and roads construction. In regards to some of the ICIP process itself, one of the big ones, of course, is always citizen participation, to see what our citizens are interested in, so that we can look at those and see which of those suggestions are the most critical. We review some of our existing plans that maybe we already have and see if we can go into a design, or if we have design of those, maybe we just need to implement some construction funds. We also identify and prioritize for capacity, and then we're going to submit our ICIP to the governing body and adopt it by resolution, and then submit it to the local government division. We also meet with department heads to see what their needs are, because they are the boots on the ground. They know exactly what's going on a daily basis out in the field. They'll develop a draft project list that is specific maybe to their department, and we'll review those more in depth when we come back to you guys for the list of projects. So this slide here that you guys are looking at with the project profile, project information, and additional questions, this is all information that has to be entered into the ICIP for every project that we're going to put into our ICIP. So some of our available funding sources I already listed earlier, and but some of those funding sources, as well as our local funds, have funded some recent ICIP projects. We've had our animal shelter, some electric feeder upgrades, the Veterans Wall, our wastewater treatment plant upgrades, airport fuel farm, electrical pole replacement, our Sims Road rehab, the Broadway sidewalk project, and our manhole rehab. Those are all items that have been listed on our ICIP in the past, and we've gotten funding for those. So these next two slides are the current ICIP list that was submitted last year. And so this year's goal, what I'm asking of the commission as well as the departments and the public, is to really review this current list. Some of these I think have been on our list for quite a while and maybe are no longer a priority. And so the local government department division is requesting that we shorten our list. They aren't necessarily looking for these big, huge lists for municipalities anymore. And so what I'd like you guys to do is start reviewing this list. And when I come back, I think we'll all have some suggestions maybe on which ones we can either delete from this list, where we need to re-rank or reprioritize, as well as new projects that we may need to add. So if there's anything at this time that Manager Fuentes would like to add, otherwise I'll stand for any questions or comments.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioners, thank you, Tracy. I think just to emphasize what you already stated, which is that the state no longer wants this long wish list. They actually want realistic, ready-to-go projects. And I think some of these projects, as you will see even on the current list, where we're talking about water or wastewater, a lot of times they require a preliminary engineering report, some initial investment from the community. So that will help us as well. If we put a project that's ready to go and we decide to invest that first piece of the project, whether it's the PER, then that will go a long ways when we actually ask for the bigger pot of money for the project. So those are things and suggestions that we'll be presenting to the commission in collaboration with the utilities directors to identify those that may be the PER phase or those for the full funding phase. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Manager Fuentes. Any questions? So I just have one, Tracy. Did you get a sense that they'd be amenable to consider funding for a project that was already started, but that there was no money on the tail end to complete it?
They seem to be more in favor of projects that they could fund for completion. So I guess the answer to that would be yes. You know, like Manager Fuentes said, you know, if we were to come to a project like, say, our water line replacement, which I know is a big issue within our community, currently our preliminary engineering report for that water line replacement only specifies our downtown water lines. So to seek funding for water lines outside of that area, we will have to have another preliminary engineering report done. Even though we have an asset management plan that identifies our critical, it's not a PER, and they do require, and a lot of funding sources require a PER, USDA being one of them. So if we were to put water line replacement project outside of the downtown area on our ICIP list, we would either be needing to spend our local funds for a preliminary engineering report, and then after that, we'd have our design, planning and designing money there, or not the plan, I'm sorry, the design money. And then if we spent the money and had all that done, we would probably have a better chance of getting money, a capital appropriation for, say, the construction of it. So if there's a project that is a critical project or critical need, and we've got almost everything completed, but we just need a little more funds, those seem to be the ones that they are looking at going towards,
Okay, thank you.
especially if we can regionalize, you know.
Got it. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you for your
Thank you.
presentation and your hard work preparing it. All right, the next item is consent calendar. I will need a motion for approval of the consent calendar, which consists of City Commission Special Budget Workshop minutes of May 3rd, 2018, City Commission regular minutes of May 23rd, 2018, Impact Fee Board minutes of May 21st, 2018, Public Utility Advisory Board minutes of May 21st, 2018, authorization to reinvest balance amounts of maturing certificates of deposits for the R&R sewer, R&R water, and pledged state accounts. And the last one is a contracts with Les Deschamps and Steve Sage for public defender services for indigent defendants.
Mayor Green, I move that we approve the consent calendar as you have just read.
Thank you, sir. I have a motion by Mayor, excuse me, Mayor. I did, and I have a second by Mayor Bacher, so it's equal here. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, carries unanimously. The next item is G1 under ordinance/resolution/zoning. Number 1, discussion action, resolution number 38, 2017/2018, declaring surplus property for the July 28, 2018 public auction. And our presenter is City Clerk Renee Cancel.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager. First of all, I noticed on the commission action form, it says the auction's going to be March 17th, and the correct date for that will be July 28th for the next auction. So before you, we have a new list of items, and I want to say a special thank you to the electric department and police department who went all out once again. We have a couple vehicles, one 4x8 trailer. We have and then a whole list, including some computer equipment. And I know the mayor had a question about whether we might be able to recycle that computer equipment, so I did check with our sanitation director, and Andy said at this point, with the recycling down the way it is, and with the work that would be involved in taking the cords out and such, and then scrapping the computers for metal, it would be much easier if we just delivered it for the auction and sold it to the highest bidder. With that, I'll open it for any questions you might have.
Thank you. If I might just state the record, the T&C recycling is not down. I want to make that perfectly
Yes.
clear. We are actually up. What I believe the solid waste and recycling department is talking about is the global market, and the availability of selling this on the market is down, and the value is coming down to pennies sometimes. I think that's what they're referring to.
That's correct,
I just wanted
absolutely.
to make
Sorry
sure
about that.
the newspapers didn't pick up something that was erroneous, so thank you. Any other questions?
And I would just remark that regardless of whether the value is more or less than $2,500, we're going to be advertising anyway, which is our usual standard.
Correct.
Okay, if there's no questions, concerns, I will stand for a motion.
Mayor Green, I'd like to move that we approve resolution number 38, 17/18 declaring surplus property to be not essential for public or government functions to be sold pursuant to 3-54-2 NMSA at the July 28, 2018 public auction.
I have a motion by Commissioner, I just demoted you, Hessler. I need a second.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Baca. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, can we have roll call, please?
Honorable Steve Green?
Yes.
Honorable Ralph Hessler?
Yes.
Honorable Paul Baca?
Yes.
Carries unanimously. Thank you. The next item is discussion action, resolution number 39, 2017/2018, final budget adjustment. Our presenter is our Director of Finance, Ms. Melissa Torres.
Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager Fuentes, City Clerk Canton. The City of Truth or Consequences Finance is respectively requesting the following budget adjustments. I will be just giving you the last numbers of the fund. Utility Office Expense 502 Fund, number 40110, 14,000, increase full-time wages. Utility Office Fund 502, County Line 45555, 14,000, increase miscellaneous expense, which are the credit card sales. Utility Revenue Fund 502, 23,600, increased revenue, red tags fees. Fund 508, Golf Course, miscellaneous expense, $5,375. Golf Course expense, Fund 508, for $5,375. Increase government gross receipts tax expense. Fund 201, Corrections Revenue, $3,260. Fund 201, Corrections Revenue, $586. Increase court automation fees. Fund 209, Revenue for Fire, $117. Increase state fire allotment revenue. Fund 209, Fire Revenue, $50. Interest-bearing income. Fund 294, State Library Revenue, $1,497. Increase state library grant. Fund 297, PD Confidential Revenue, $5. Increase interest income revenue. Fund 297, PD Confidential Revenue, $480. Increase deposit PD Confidential. Fund 301, Impact Fees Revenue, $1,350. Increase water impact fee. Fund 301, Impact Fee Revenue, $40. Increase interest income. Fund 302, Electric Constructions Revenue, $987. Increase interest income. Fund 311, R&R Sewer Revenue, $378. Interest income revenue. Fund 313, R&R Water, $1,000. Increase interest income revenue. Fund 316, Emergency Reserves Revenue, increase $8. Increase interest income. Fund 317, WW Reserve Revenue, $24. Increase interest income. Fund 318, Electric Revenue, $25. Interest income revenue. Fund 501, Cemetery Revenue, $4,800. Increase other charges for services. Fund 501, Cemetery, $9. Increase interest income revenue. Fund 505, Solid Waste, $2,498. Increase GRT revenue. Fund 505, Solid Waste Revenue, $42,017. Increase utility service. Fund 505, Solid Waste, $1,478. Increase non-payment penalty of 8%. Fund 505, Solid Waste Revenue, $9,524. Miscellaneous recycling. Fund 509, Airport Expense, $18,376. Increase expense for jet fuel. Fund 509, $4,552, increase AV gas expense line. Fund 509, airport, $859, increase governmental tax 5% revenue. Fund 509, airport revenue, $8,272, increase hangar rentals. Fund 509, airport revenue, $150, increase rentals. Fund 509, airport revenue, $86, increase oil sales. Fund 509, revenue, $28,000, increase jet fuel sales revenue. Fund 509, airport revenue, $15,000, increase interest income bearing. And also, we just wanted to include our internal budget transfers within the general fund. These were the departments that had shortfalls that we utilized within the departments of the general fund. The governing body expense, they had a shortfall on attorney fees and sub-recipients, and we utilized the clerk's equipment that they had left over and Department 1018 for their utilities, city managers for the New Mexico Clean and Beautiful. That was my oversight, and that was because I didn't include the expenditures on that side. And so we took the expenditures from the clerk's office on their election supplies they had left over. Finance, we were shortfall on the audit contract, and we took that from Parks and Recreation because they had personnel savings. So at this time, I stand for any questions.
And Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I'd like to just follow up and add a little bit more on that, those internal. Within the general fund, obviously, as Melissa pointed out, there were other funds that were under the budget that we took out. Going into the new fiscal year, we're not going to be doing those transfers like we did. We're actually going to bring it back to the commissioners, so that way we recognize those departments that stay within their budgets, and also kind of ask questions for those departments that may be over to address that. So I think just so you'll be aware that even within the general fund, we'll be coming back to the commission for increases within when a department within the general fund is in need of additional resources. We will require that department head to come before the commission and ask for an increase in additional funds.
Okay, thank you. Any concerns, questions? Yes, sir.
So the overall result, Manager Fuentes, as a result of all these transfers and changes, that we still have a balanced budget.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioner Heschler, I do not know the answer to that question yet, because this is the last week of the fiscal year. We're hoping that by the end of this week, we'll be able to determine where we're at as far as going into the new fiscal year. As far as for this budget, for this fiscal year, this will clean up a lot of those items that we anticipate would be issues if they're not addressed for the audit. But again, but going into the new fiscal year for the new budget, that will be determined later this week and going into the final workshop.
Okay. Just an observation, if I might. Having worked with state budgets before, there's no way that you can go ahead and predict what every department's going to use every year. Sometimes you have issues with departments, and I equate the parks I used to manage with departments. And sometimes I would have a park that would be way under budget, saved a lot of money, and I would be able to transfer that money from that park to another park because they had an unexpected expense or whatever, and we did those things in-house. And those were within the parameters of what we were allowed to do. I guess if you want to bring it before the commission, you may, and perhaps we should be aware of it, but I don't think it's totally necessary as long as we stay within a balanced budget. I think that's the most important thing.
Well, in normal, within Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Heschler, for example, in the Public Works Department, because they have multiple budgets, there's that flexibility, obviously, where they can use multiple resources. But when it's two different departments, for example, if my budget, if I'm over $10,000, I can't just automatically say, I'm going to take it away from the clerk's office. I'm going to take it away from the Parks Department because they may still need those resources. So that's why towards the end of the fiscal year, we need to kind of be, that's part of our goal because of the way our budget is structured, which is essentially in a deficit, the general fund. And we'll, you know, this process will be kind of, we'll have more detailed discussion in the final. Because of how it's structured, it is more critical that everybody stays within their allowed budgets. And it is also critical that we try to save as much as possible going into the new fiscal year, because we're already, even though we approve a final budget, we kind of already start on the red for the following year. And even that year, after we approve it, we still start in the red the following year. It's just because of the way our budget is structured in the general fund, which is, it's in a deficit from the start. We have to work hard every year throughout the year to save as much as we can, to make sure we have the available ending cash balance to approve next year's budget. So that's why I would feel more comfortable bringing those back to the commission, because we've done that in the past. And that kind of helps everybody to, again, stay within their own budget and recognize those departments that, for example, are 75% spent versus 99%.
You will keep us posted on that. Balancing the budget at the end.
Right. Well, and like I said, I think we are going into the new fiscal year, and that we will be having a budget workshop. The initial phase after this week will be obviously meeting with staff internally, and then meeting with the department heads, and then having a workshop with the commissioners.
Thank you, Manager Fuentes. Any further questions? Hearing none, I will stand for a motion, please, for approval of the budget adjustments.
Mayor Green, I'd like to move that we approve resolution number 39, 2017/2018, final budget adjustment as presented by our finance director, Melissa Torres.
I have a motion by Commissioner Heschler, second by Commissioner Baca. Any further discussion? Hearing none, can we have roll call, Madam Clerk, please?
Honorable Steve Green?
Yes.
Honorable Sandra Whitehead is absent. Honorable Ralph Heshler?
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark is absent. Honorable Paul Baca?
Yes.
Thank you, carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. It is not an easy task that you have been tasked with, and we appreciate what you and your department is doing under pressure with the clock ticking and the calendar keep on rolling forward, so thank you for that. New business H, discussion action award of the RFP number 18/19-001 for airport engineering services presented by our CPO, Ms. Pat Wood.
Good morning, Commissioners, Mayor, Commissioners. We're here to discuss, take action on award of the RFP 18-19-001 Airport Engineering Services. We received proposals for the services until Tuesday, May 29th at 2 p.m. We received 3 proposals for the engineering services: Delta Airport Consultants, Armstrong Consultants, Bohanna Houston Incorporated. Our selection committee evaluated the proposals and are making a recommendation to award the RFP to Armstrong Consultants.
Okay.
And they are here. Armstrong Consultants are here, I'm sorry.
We'd like to welcome you to your seat. Appreciate that. Appreciate you throwing your hat in the ring, and obviously you're going to wear the hat, so once we get through this motion. Any further questions of Ms. Wood? Then I will stand for a motion for approval of the award.
Mayor Green, I move that we award RFP 18-19-001 for airport engineering services as presented by Pat Wood to Armstrong Construction.
I have a motion by Commissioner Heschler, looking for a second.
Second
By Commissioner Baca. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Since you folks are here, is there anyone from Armstrong that would like to just introduce yourselves to us and your organization? Since it looks like we might be seeing your faces time to time here in the commission meeting.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners, and City Manager. I'm here. My name is Tim Archibek. I'm Director of Aviation Services for Armstrong here in New Mexico. We're based out of Albuquerque. I also brought one of my engineers, Laura Van Avery. We're anxious to get started on the airport, working with Mark, and we're glad you picked us, and we're just thankful to give us a shot, and we think you'll be pleasantly
Please.
pleased. Yes, exactly.
I was going to say surprise, but we don't want that.
No,
We want-
no,
we want-
no.
We
No,
want
no.
pleased. Well,
No, we do a lot of work in the state of New Mexico and throughout the Southwest, but I opened the office for Armstrong since we got busy in 2010. So I've been with Armstrong 8 years, and I've worked in New Mexico all my life. I've been with a few other consultants. It's going on in between about 25 years. So I've been here. I know New Mexico very well, and as all of our engineers know, we're all native New Mexicans. So we, if you have any questions, problems, give me a call.
well, we hope this is getting along in a fruitful relationship between your company and our organization, our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is discussion update. Proposed terms for Verizon Tower on water tank, and our presenter is Susanna Diller, our GIS/planning tech.
Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager. Point of clarification first. Apparently there was some confusion over which water tank was being discussed. This is the one we've been talking about with Verizon, the painted one up on the hill behind the museum. So basically Verizon sent us some proposed business terms that they wanted the commission to have their eyes on. And you're not taking a vote on it, but sort of I would need an authorization to proceed. They don't want to go through the special use permit process and go through the effort of sending a lease over to our legal and everything if you guys looked at this and thought, well, this is absolutely ridiculous. So basically what they sent us, you're looking at initial annual rent of $1,000 a month, an annual escalator of 2%, and then they're looking at kind of a 25-year contract where they would have the option to opt out at every 5-year point. So that's what they sent. If that looks like a reasonable starting point to you guys, I can just let them know that they would move forward with doing the special use permit, and then if that passes, they would put together a draft lease that legal would then go over before anything. You're not agreeing to anything here, just saying that this looks like a reasonable starting point for them to move forward.
Okay. Questions? I've got, Commissioner Baca, did you have a question?
No.
Oh, okay. So it's a single tower?
So this is what they've been talking about, doing the panels, the antennas, where they're mounted around the side of the water tank there, where they would be painted to kind of match the existing design up there to have as minimal visual impact as possible, and there would be a small ground footprint to support their antennas up there. It's not a tower.
Okay. And so, Susanna, in case we're asked, how high are these going to stick up on above the top line of the water tank?
The last discussion we had, they wouldn't have any visual prominence. They wouldn't be any taller than the water tank itself. So they'd be mounted around the side, if you can picture the sort of the top colored band there, and that would be almost the upper reach of it. So they wouldn't go above the water tank.
But if I may add, Mayor, Commissioners, I think, you know, the initial request, obviously, as Susanna pointed out, is there general consensus, at least on the terms, to get the next process moving. The details of the exact panels, the size, the height, the color, all of that will be part of the special use request, permit request. Now, they do understand, well, this is in general, it's the agreed upon, maybe I think the consensus of, yes, these terms may look agreeable. There's no guarantees that we're committing anyways, because there's still a special use permit process. Who knows, we might have, you know, 50% of the residents of Tier C come out and say, we don't want it, so the commissioners, so, you know, even though these are good terms, we might not necessarily say, well, it's just, you know, people have spoken. So all those little details, as previously presented several months ago, will be kind of what they will be presenting back to the commission. And all those questions, and I believe there is a public hearing under the special use permit.
Yeah, there will
So
be a
the-
public hearing, be the notification process.
So the public will have an opportunity to speak on that. Part of the holdup and why it has taken a little bit longer is because we also tried to reach out to AT&T to give them an opportunity, and they never responded. So we're ready to move forward, at least with working with Verizon on this proposed panels for the tower.
So the fact that we reached out to AT&T and they were non-responsive, does that mean that Verizon's going to have an exclusivity?
Not on the tower, but I think they will have the first choice on location.
Okay, all right. All right, any further questions? Then I will stand for a motion to basically start this process.
Mayor Green, I'd like to motion that we start the process of negotiations with Verizon to present to us the project of putting antennas on the water tank as presented by Susanna Dillard.
I have a motion by Commissioner Heschler and a second by
I'll second.
Commissioner Baca. Any further discussion? Actually, this is just an update. It doesn't even need a vote, does it? I just realized that.
I thought Susanna wanted something from me, though, that...
Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah,
you're
just with the
looking for
authorization to
authorization.
proceed,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think
so-
that's...
So we're good.
Proceed.
All right.
Okay, all right. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
All right, thank you.
Next item is discussion action, lodger's tax reimbursement request. The first up is Hans Towns, here? Oh, Hans, from the Chamber of Commerce.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, and Renee, it is a little embarrassing, but I prepared our claim for the $500. I think you all got the paperwork in May, and it was on a Friday, and I went down, and I was too late to get it in on that Friday, and I shoved it to one side, thinking I've got to go in next week, because this was the last month, and it totally slipped my mind. That's all I can say. I have no excuses, no reasons for it. It's one of those things that other things sort of overcame, and so I'm asking if you would reconsider that reimbursement request for the chamber.
Okay, questions?
Just an observation, Mayor, but
Yes,
we
sir.
went through one of these 2 weeks ago,
Yep.
and we were compassionate, and I think it was the right thing to do. And we probably will be compassionate again today, but at some point, we're going to have to take a stance with these reimbursement requests, for better late, because it does take people's time, and it does cause some issues on occasion. So that's really all I have to say in that regard, but we should keep that in mind.
Well, we might want to take a look at our guidelines, because as we looked at this a couple of days ago, there's some competing language in there, as to relate what the rules are. So I think at this point, it's up to the commission to make a decision, but I think we might want to take a look for future reference.
And Commissioner Heschler, to your point, you're absolutely spot on. We are compassionate. However, if you're late with your mortgage payment, they don't come in necessarily and take your home, but they do penalize you financially. If you're late with your credit card payment, you're just building up more penalties. And to Commissioner Heschler's point, reimbursement payments, if it's not in the manager's office no later than the last business day in May, invoices submitted after that date in big bold letters will not be paid. And yet we have another document that says, if you mess up, you can come before the commission and ask for forgiveness, and hopefully, so there's mixed messages that we are sending out under lodger's tax. There are mixed messages that we are sending out under subrecipient grants. For example, in the grant agreement for the subrecipient, the contractor shall be subject to losing 50% of a quarterly draw if the invoice is not submitted by the due date. I know this has been a bone of consternation to staff, to the commission. We don't want to be hard-hearted Hannahs, but I'll tell you, it's no fun playing King Solomon. and you, Commissioner Heschel, you're right. If what's good for the goose is going to be good for the gander. But I would like to see possibly staff work with the Lodgers Tax Board to come up with something that is inviolate, that you can't break, that takes that pressure off the city. I mean, we appreciate what these organizations do for us and for the community, and if we had to foot the bill ourselves, we couldn't do it. I understand it, I get that. But also, on the other hand, it's free money. And we're not asking you to run a 4-minute mile. We're just asking you to follow the rules and regulations. So I can't make a motion on that, but hopefully staff is hearing us, that we can come up with something, bring back to the commission that works for subrecipient grants, that works for Lodgers tax. It's the same language. There is absolutely no confusion, and we don't have to spend our time doing this. We can spend our time doing more important things and free up staff as well. So, yes.
I can be sure it's on the next agenda.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to see something that if the deadline hasn't been met, then perhaps a percentage of it could be lost over time. And the longer the length of time is that the reimbursement is neglected, then the higher that percentage is. And so maybe along those lines.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, maybe I'd like to ask legal, Jay, if possible, as the mayor was and comments were being made, I was kind of just thinking in my mind, if we can put in the agreement a legal clause that would, that the applicants, people who sign the agreement will agree that they will not come before the commission. Because even though we have these guidelines, they will still ask, I want to go and ask the commissioners, and we cannot deny them because we have a form that says you can make a request to be on the agenda. So can that be part of the legal document where they have signed off and say, yes, if I submit it late, I will be losing that funding?
Yes, I think really any provision like that both parties agree to when they sign the contract, so it would be enforceable. So yes.
Okay. And I'll take those suggestions to the Lodgers Tax Board.
I'm not going to speak for Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead and Commissioner Clark, but I would be absolutely amazed if they were not in lockstep with us on this one, because it's been a bone of contention for me for 10 years, serving this community, and it's just over and over and over the same thing. So I appreciate your honesty. There might have been a way that you could have tried to be cute and say, gee, this was another member of the board who's responsible, who passed away, and hearts and flowers, and we certainly all mourn the loss of Mike Cortez. But you were upfront, and we all make mistakes, just as simple as that. So I will stand for a motion for payment. I believe it is $500.
Correct.
That the chamber is requesting. So I will stand for a motion.
Mayor Green, I'd like to make a motion that we approve Mr. Townsend's request for Lodgers tax reimbursement for up to $500.
I have a motion by Commissioner Heschler. I will second that motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. I'm sorry, Commissioner, did you vote? I didn't hear you, I'm sorry. Bad ear. Carries unanimously, thank you.
Much appreciated. I would like to say, though, that when you say this is free money, I know for us, it's not really looked that way, because most of the things we do, we actually add money to it. Some of the things we do, we add as much money as we get. So, and in this case, the bill was $700 that we paid. You're contributing to what we're doing, and sometimes that's hard to find the money that we have to add to it, but it's something we've been doing for years, and we feel it's a necessary part of the process of trying to promote TRC and keep us in the race. So I appreciate you being so lenient with us, and I'll try and keep my memory in check. Thank you.
Just mark it on your iPad or something, a month before it's due.
Well, I did, and I did it, and I went downtown and they were closed. I'd missed the time because I was running around doing things, and I pushed it to one side thinking I've got to do it Monday. And in my pile of papers, I don't know what your office looks like, but mine scares people away, so I'm sorry, but thank you.
Mr. Townsend, thank you for your service, Dr.
Yeah, thank you.
Very important.
Okay, and the next item is a lodger's tax reimbursement request from NMSRDA, Sierra Twirlers of Tier C. Mr. Solis is our requester.
Yes, good morning, Mayor, Commissioners, Manager. Obviously, due to a reading impairment I must have, I am standing before you to request a time extension and budget adjustment to our lodger's tax. This was the Sierra Twirlers' first experience with the lodger's tax reimbursement program. With the help of the city manager's office, we were able to file our first 3 reports in the required time frame. Our event was held, as you know, on the weekend of May 18th through 20th. It was a 3-day event which was attended by 150 plus people, of which 140 or so were from out of the area, actually out of state, some, and even out of country. On Wednesday, May 23rd, my wife and I left New Mexico to attend our son's wedding in Wales. It was a 3-week visit. I was mistakenly under the impression that I could submit our club's final receipts with the last quarter's report. Carol Wheeler was visiting with Linda DiMarino the first week of June, who informed Carol that the report could not wait until June 15th. Or the report could, but the receipts had to be in by May 30th. Carol was unable to contact me. I returned to New Mexico on Monday, June 11th, and our club danced on the 14th, at which time I found out that I missed the deadline. That's, I guess, my inept justification for our time frame. As far as the budget amendment, we did not need the advertising or email funding, as we were able to barter with Arizona and other areas by advertising their dances. They were advertised ours. However, I did drive a lot of miles, and I was wanting to move the monies over to distribution on the miles. And actually, I have an additional 1,000 miles that I can't request because there's no monies for it. But if you would consider that, what we're requesting would be a $928 or $26.85 request, and the amount left on our grant was $928.98. If you do not approve either one or any of it, I truly understand. So I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Questions or concerns?
Any questions and concerns we had last time?
Yes, I do have a question. Just legal, and I don't have the lodger's tax rules and regulations, and maybe Linda could help me on this. Can we legally use lodger's tax? We can, let me rephrase that. We can legally use lodger's tax for distribution of materials and stuff like that. Okay, so legally, we're on good standing, and obviously, I think the precedent has been set. Thank you, Linda. So I will entertain a motion.
Mayor Green, I'd like to move that we approve the lodger's tax reimbursement request by Mr. Solis as he presented in the amount of $926.85.
I have a motion by Commissioner Heschler, second by
I'll second that.
Commissioner Baca. I just have a comment. I want to thank you guys. I think it was awesome. I think it showed off our city. Your folks had fun dancing under a stoplight in 100-degree weather. I'm not quite sure what the police department bargained for, but it really worked out well. And I think that if I've heard correctly, that we're going to have the pleasure of entertaining this organization back in a couple years, and hopefully we can tighten that gap of them going someplace else, and we want to continue to work with Joey and Carol and some of your people on your board to make this, because this is a great event, because it really does bring in people who participate in this event. They've got to come in and they got to sleep here and they got to eat here and they got to buy gas here. So the economic impact is awesome. And these are the type of events that I personally would like to see us put our effort behind. A 3-day event where 80 or more percent of the people are from out of town. They're not going home at nighttime and coming back the next morning. That ain't happening. So thank you for all your efforts, and hopefully we will have legislation that will not allow you to be here next year, and hopefully you won't have to be here next year. So thank you very much. Okay, so all those in favor of the lodger's tax reimbursement request from NMSRDA Sierra Twirl is up to your seat. Please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Report, City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner, just one quick item, and that is I attended the New Mexico Municipal League Policy Committee meetings Saturday in Albuquerque this past weekend, and the one resolution that stood out that I believe the league is going to try to make some changes in regards to lodger's tax. We had a lot of talk about the Airbnbs, and some communities have interpreted the number of rooms just to include not just sleeping quarters, but any room, but they've taken that stance. And other communities have not. So there's that difference of opinion of what the statute reads, but there's consensus from the league and other communities that we want to make a change to that, so that it makes it clear that it's just 3 rooms, and it applies to if there's only 1 bedroom and a bathroom and a kitchen, then it applies. But I think there is push to make that change in this next legislative session.
Manager Fuentes, is there any legislator that's carrying that water that we maybe could have a resolution that supports that we could throw our weight behind that?
And they will, once the legislature begins and some of those bills are being introduced, we will know, who the sponsor of that bill will be, and then we can definitely throw our support behind it. And usually they have committee hearings for it, so there could be an effort to kind of have a presence there to advocate for it.
Sweet. Excellent.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner, I'm promoting everyone. Attorney Rubin.
I have no report, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Hessler.
Yeah, just a real quick report. I was very proud to be affiliated with the Ezra Group, the International South Rocket Association that came to Las Cruces and this community last week. I was out of pocket the whole week, so I apologize if nobody got a hold of me, but the team out there spent about 70 or 80 hours of work that week trying to get through. I recall that Wednesday morning when I went to work, I looked at McDonald's, there was 6 or 7 kids standing at the window, and this was at 4 o'clock in the morning. And so I thought that was pretty cool. And I yelled out the window, "Are you Ezra kids?" And they all responded with an affirmative. While at the actual event, there were several records set with rockets, and I don't have all the facts and figures yet, but they'll be coming out later. But I made some good contacts, and I was trying to get some swag. And as I approached the Swiss team, and the Swiss team, just to give you an idea, they launched 1 rocket, but had 25 people that came from Switzerland to this area in support of that 1 rocket launch. And the only way I was able to get any swag and get one of their hats was I said, "Well, if you'll give me that hat, I promise I'll present it to the mayor." So with that, Mayor, I would like to present you with a Swiss Space Center cap.
I love it.
From Spaceport America.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. Do we have a contact for them that we maybe could take a picture of me wearing it or with the city manager and all the commissioners? Absolutely. And send it off. So let's see if we can do that.
And it's blue.
And I knew you were going to bring that.
But I don't have to yodel, do I? Well, that's very kind of you. Thank you very much. That's wonderful. Thank you. Commissioner, was that the end of your? That was it. Okay. Commissioner Baca.
Yes, I got a couple things. I was curious, Mr. Fuentes, on the north lift station, when is that going to be fixed? How many times are we gonna experience sewage going down the road before we get that actually fixed?
Mr. Mayor and Commissioner Baca, so the sewer lift station and Tracy's, we have an application with the sewer lifts on the water side. And that is scheduled to be done on Phase 2B on the wastewater treatment plant. So the funding is already in place. But it's funding that is part of the bigger project with the wastewater treatment plant. We've already taken care of Phase 1, 2A is almost complete. Now they're going to go into Phase 2B. So it doesn't make any, any fiscal sense for us to go in and start spending our own money to rehab it when the money's already in place. The incident that happened recently either has been, as I reported to you all in the police department, has made a report. Somebody broke into that lift station and stole the meter.
Right.
And that's what caused the problem. So obviously there's some security issues that we need to address. So it wasn't the system itself. So we've had other instances where the equipment has failed. It is an old station. It was built back in the early 90s. So it is scheduled for the rehab, and I think that's going to address a lot of the problems. I can't tell you that, I can't guarantee that we're not going to have another incident from now until the project is completed. But I can tell, what I can tell you is, with certainty, is that Jesus, our wastewater director, and his staff are just responding as quickly as possible to address any issues. And we're keeping informed the appropriate agencies. But that's where that project is. And again, we're very fortunate, the city's very fortunate that we got the funding from USDA and the Colonias for the wastewater treatment plant and for that sewer lift station. Because if we didn't get that money, I don't know where we will come up for the funding for that project. So we're very fortunate, and that is coming soon.
Did the city acquire the Buckhorn property?
Yes, we did. We did. The Buckhorn, several years ago, when it was, we had to demolish it because the property owner did not take the proactive action to stabilize the building, and it ended up, the face of it ended up falling on Main Street. So we did put a lien on it because we were the ones who went in and cleaned it up. And obviously, he, as part of a resolution, he turned it over to the city. So that is the location where the art park is going to go in, and that's why you may see some of our city crews out there doing some work.
Good, you answered all my questions,
Thank you.
And the last thing I'd just like to talk about for 1 second is our brewery in our Main Street district of downtown. Like 4 things happened. It's like dominoes. First of all, the Albuquerque Journal did an amazing article on the brewery and how it's revitalizing the Main Street area of our city, of our community. Yesterday, either yesterday or the day before yesterday, at about 7 o'clock, maybe earlier, about 6 o'clock in the morning, KRWG, which is NPR out of New Mexico State University, is doing an interview with someone who's talking about how do you revitalize downtowns and the price of liquor licenses, and all of a sudden I hear her talking about truth and consequences. And so I know that we have a representative, the executive director is here, Linda DiMarino, how important one business can be to change an entire area and an attitude. And that Manager Fuentes gave me the link yesterday. There's a PR firm with the New Mexico Tourism Department that is having a travel writer coming in July 5th, on Thursday, July 5th, and I will be showing them around our community. But what was the deciding factor is they heard about the brewery. And evidently, this person who was interviewed, I just turned on the radio, or just started listening to the radio a little bit after they had introduced this person. They're talking about legislation that they're going to be bringing in at the next session to make it easier for these type of businesses to get up and running, because the liquor licenses are just cost of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And here is one business that can really be the garden that attracts the bees. and hopefully that our fellow businesses that are downtown are experiencing some increase in business because of the brewery, who continues to extend their hours, and I understand their employment as well, to take advantage of all the people who are downtown, who are walking our streets and keep their shops open and hopefully do some more business. So I thought it was just great to read about TRC and to hear about it over the airways, and then the next day we get a request for a guided tour of our community from the Mexico Tourism Department by a journalist. So that is kind of awesome. That is the end of my report. We will be going into executive session, so I will need a motion, please.
Mayor Green, I'd like to motion that we move into executive session for threatened or pending litigation, City versus McGeechee pursuant to 10-15-1, H.7.
I have a motion by Commissioner Heschler. Second by Commissioner Bacher. Can we have roll call, please?
Honorable Steve Green,
Yes.
Honorable Sandra Whitehead is absent, Honorable Ralph Eschler,
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark is absent, Honorable Paul Baca.
Yes.
All right, we're going to go into executive session. But before we do, as long as I have the bully pulpit, I just want to thank Commissioner Heschler. I know he spends a lot of time out at Spaceport America, and it's really like the City Commission and the City of TRC having our own boots on the ground. He is our goodwill ambassador, always thinking about the mayor not getting a sunburn and wearing a hat, but also promoting our community and being just smart and sharp about it. And I know you want to retire, but I wish you could be there for many, many more years because you represent us well. But so I just want to thank you for that. It's awesome having that type of information feedback to us, so we can be ahead of the game sometimes rather than behind the 8 ball. Thank you very much for attending. We're going to be in executive session. Session, do we need to just check outside? Just in case. Klaus wants to come in out of this.
Pause again.
Shut up. I'm not going to talk to you. Okay, so we are back in general session. I will stand for a motion, please.
Need the certification first?
Yeah, I need a stipulation.
Yeah, Mayor Green, I certify that we are moving out of executive session and that only items pertaining to threatened or pending litigation versus city, with the City versus McGeechee pursuant to 10-15-1, H7 were discussed and no decisions were made.
Okay, thank you. Any motions? I will entertain a motion.
Mayor Green, I'd like to move that we allow our attorney Rubin to proceed as we discussed during the executive session.
I have a motion by Commissioner Heschler. Is a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Bacher. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you very much. The next commission meeting is, have a happy 4th, July 11th, 2018.
That was great, everybody.
So the court is going to